Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. We are in the early stages of the 2030 to 2031 offseason. And since our last episode, we made a couple of minor changes. You can see we've only moved ahead one day, so you haven't missed out on too much. But as we've tried to clean up some extra money for free agents and extensions, which we've definitely done, we've made a couple of minor trades. Traded reliever Brian Matoyer to the White Sox. He was going to be making about $2.5 to $3 million in arbitration and had no option years left. So we traded him for Reggie Crawford, who's a average-ish major league left-hander, but making the major league minimum, and he's still got 2 option years left. So figured that was a way to clear a little bit of money and give ourselves a little more optionality. Similar, Chris Machma, we traded away to the Diamondbacks, another player who was out of options. We got minor league third baseman Maximo Acosta, who still has 2 option years left also. So got rid of players that were going to be expensive and or had no options left to give ourselves a little more optionality and save a little more money. And then the other thing that we did that cleared up a little bit of money was we waived and DFA'd 3 players, pitcher Wyatt Wendell, left fielder Henry Ramos, and center fielder Jason Dominguez. Hopefully they all clear waivers and make it to AAA Omaha, but wanted to get those numbers for their contracts off of the major league books. So that has us in a pretty good position right now financially. We're now looking at over $60 million that we have to spend, and it's important that we've got that money to spend because we are potentially losing our top starting pitcher Spencer Bauer, our top daily everyday player Bobby Witt Jr., and our starting shortstop Tim Anderson, in addition to first baseman Rafael Devers, who we traded for, R.J. Davich, who's been a real big part of our bullpen, closer Luke Murphy, who we traded for, and Josh Young. So a lot of players are going to be coming off the books, so it's good that we've got all of that money to potentially spend. One thing we are going to do, we are going to raise our ticket prices a bit. You can see our average price last year was $28.28. We moved it up to $29 when we made our one change around the All-Star break, and you can see we were pretty much sold out even at that level. Fan interest is 85. Obviously, it could crater if we lose Bobby Witt Jr. and Bauer, but we're still going to push it up to $30. We're trying to get to the point where we're not necessarily selling out every day. Want to kind of maximize profitability and revenue rather than attendance. So we'll keep pushing on ticket price a bit. We want pretty full stands, but more importantly, we want to maximize as much money as we can make as possible. So we're going to raise the ticket price. And then one last thing, we've looked at what a lot of players we've traded away have done over our last few episodes. One that I hadn't thought of was the big decision in our past offseason. Trevor Rogers, our longtime ace, we were absolutely definitely going to move on from, and then when he made it to free agency and his demands weren't that much, we were in on him, and then his demands just kept going up, and we ended up bailing on him and going in another direction. So I don't even remember where he signed last year, but the Astros. Good move for us to get rid of Rogers. Our concern with him was obviously his performance had seemed to get weaker, and he was also fragile. And you can see he tore his flexor tendon in his elbow back in April, so he pitched just 3 games, only 6 1/3 innings on the season. He was great with 12 strikeouts in those 6 1/3 innings and a 1.42 ERA. But obviously a totally lost year for him, and he's still recovering. So who knows if he's going to be fragile or wrecked when he gets back from that injury. So the Astros have him for another year and then a team option. So obviously there's no guarantee. He would have only made it through 3 games if he had been on our team last year, but probably a good miss for us moving on from Mr. Rogers last offseason. So as the offseason kind of begins in earnest, we've got potentially a ton of money to spend on free agents, but as I mentioned, we've got big holes at third base, shortstop, and potentially a few holes in our pitching staff. The one area where we may have a little bit of surplus right now is in the outfield. So thinking about our outfielders, in our last episode, I talked about potentially moving on from Luis Jose, the center fielder that we traded for the Red Sox 2 seasons ago. He's been pretty productive with us with a 122 and 121 OPS pluses, but he's only played in 170 games over 2 years. Fragile, seems to always be getting hurt. And even though we got the Red Sox to keep 30% of his contract, we're still on the hook for him for $13.4 million a year for the next 5 years. Also thinking about trading away Sal Frelick, who's also fragile. He's been a really good offensive player for us over the years. Had kind of a down year this past season, but Frelick is also signed to a 5-year contract at this point, but the last 2 years are team options, so we are only into Frelick for $27 million over the next 3 years, and then we can cut him loose. As opposed to Luis Jose, although he's 3 years younger, we're into him for $67 million over the next 5 years. And given that I think we've got our center fielder of the future with our number 1 pick from 2 years ago, Angelo Velazquez, who looks like a pretty good contact hitter with really good ability to play center field. Only hit .253 when we brought him up this year as a 21-year-old, but he still has potential to get a little better in several of the categories. So with the fact that we're going to turn the job over to him, and we are also looking to free up some more money, I think we're going to look to trade Jose rather than Frelick and really free up some money. Let's see what's available for Mr. Jose at this point. We're definitely not going to get a fair return. You can see there's not a lot out there being offered for him, unfortunately. Looks like the Rockies are looking to dump a contract of Zach Veen. And then the Brewers actually want him. They aren't offering much in return, but they would take his salary on without forcing us to take on a bad contract in return. So going to take a look through our options there. Obviously, we paid a lot for him, including the big-time starting pitcher, Zach Williman, when we traded for him a couple years ago. So it has definitely been a transaction that has destroyed value for our organization, unfortunately. But at this point, with the amount that we owe him and the amount he's getting paid, and the fact that I think we've got a better center fielder who's a lot younger and a lot more cost effective, I think we just want to get that salary off our books. And we're really not going to get much for Jose, but as I said, we owe him $67 million over the next 5 years, and that's obviously a contract for a guy who's going to be a 4th or 5th outfielder that's just ridiculous for us to keep on the books. We can get Ben Adams from Milwaukee, who is looks like a 4A kind of pitcher. He's never been in the majors. He's just turned 28 years old. He does have 3 option years left, though, so, he's a lefty who probably is just going to play in AAA for us for the next few seasons, but could potentially be a replacement level arm at the major league level. The issue with him is he's an extreme fly ball pitcher, only throws in the low 90s and doesn't have incredible movement. So probably going to give up a few home runs at the major league level, so not an incredibly valuable player. And then we're also potentially going to get a closer prospect, Ricky Almanza, who they picked in the 11th round a year ago. can see it looks pretty unlikely that he's going to develop into much of anything. Does throw reasonably hard, already in the mid-90s as a 19-year-old, so maybe he can develop into something for us, but they won't even necessarily agree to this offer, but we're going to go ahead and submit it, let them think about it, and hopefully they'll get it done. If not, they might come back and tell us that they want something else, but going to try to get Jose off the books to save even more money as we prepare for free agency. Oh, and there's the trade of Matoyer that I had mentioned that we made right before we started filming this episode. Anywho, looking at the potential free agents, we've got some big decisions to make. When we look at all pitchers, our guy Spencer Bauer is the best one out there. When we look at all batters, Yainer Fernandez and our Bobby Witt Jr. are kind of the best players out there. Our shortstop, Tim Anderson, and our third baseman, Bobby Witt Jr., look like the best third baseman and shortstop that are going to be hitting free agency. And those are the two big holes that we're opening up on our roster. So I don't think I'm going to chase after Tim Anderson. He was looking, last I looked, for around $18 million a year. Even more, he's looking for close to $20 million or $21 million a year for 3 years. So at 37 years old, we're not going to give him that. But let's see what BW Jr. is looking for. He's looking for $35.7 million for 7 years. As I talked about in our last episode, I don't know that I really view him as a $35 million a year player, but he is a excellent defensive third baseman, and he could conceivably become our shortstop next year. Would like him to have higher range, but certainly has the error, arm, and turning double play ability to be an excellent shortstop. Just doesn't have incredible range, but it's conceivable that he could end up playing shortstop for us if he didn't play third for us. Given the amount of money that we've got to spend, and the fact that he's a pretty proven commodity for us at this point with a 122 OPS plus 809 OPS over the course of his career. He's led the league in runs once, hits once, led or tied for the league in steals twice. He's not a $35 million player. He's a really good player who's won some gold gloves, been an all-star about half of his seasons, but I'd like to keep him. I don't want to incredibly overpay to do it, and I don't necessarily want to go for 7 years either, especially with a player opt-out after 4 where he can potentially make more, but I'm going to see if, and he's also looking for an MVP and an all-star bonus. Hey, I'd love if he won an MVP award with us. We've got a lot of money right now to spend, and we've got holes at third base and shortstop, and he's the best third baseman and possibly the best shortstop that's out there right now. So we're going to try to keep him on the team. I don't know if I want to give him 7 years and $250 million, but let me see if I can structure something that might be more palatable for the Royals. And Bobby Witt Jr. looking for 7 years, $250 million. Average of 35.7 a year. We're going to offer him 5 years at $32 million a year, so $160 million over 5 years. So almost $4 million a year less than he's looking for, in 2 years less than he's looking for. I don't think it's an insulting offer. I think we can keep the lines of discussion open. Just want to see where he comes back. He wanted a player option after the 4th season. We're instead making it be a team option for the final year of the deal, and obviously offering him significantly less money. So he's willing to do a 5-year deal. He still wants that player opt-out after 4 years. Still looking for actually even more money than he was before, but I guess it's good that we can potentially only do a 5-year deal. Got to figure out what I want to do as far as the dollar amount, though. All right, we're coming closer to meeting what he's looking for. Coming back with a 5-year deal. Actually, we want to get rid of the player opt-out. So we're getting rid of the player opt-out again and putting in a team option for the last year, but we've upped it to $34 million average over 5 years, a little bit backloaded with a team option at $38 million for that final season. But we're within $1.8 million a year of what he's looking for. We've got the 5 years he's looking for, but we did kind of take away the player opt-out. So let's see what he thinks of this. Ooh, he seems insistent on the player opt-out, and now he's asking for even more money. So we're starting to I don't want to say reach an impasse, but we're starting to get to a point where he's pretty persistent about what he wants. So we're going to have to figure out whether we're willing to give him the player opt-out or not. All right, it seems like we're going to have to include the player opt-out after the 4th season to get him to stay. So we're $34 million a year for the first year, 4 years, and then a $36.5 million option for the 5th season, which puts us up to an average annual value of $34.5 million. So we increased the value $500,000 a year from our last offer, and we also kept in the player option that he wants rather than a team option. And that's still not good enough. He's playing hardball with us. Ugh. He's still in a decent mood. I think he's only going to be even more expensive once he hits free agency. We've got so much money to spend. He's the best player out there. I think we got to just get him locked up before we let him hit free agency. All right, this is the offer that's going to show whether we have any chance at all of getting him for less than he's looking for. He's looking for $36.3 million. We're giving him an offer for $35.5 million, so we're only $820,000 a year average less than he's looking for. We do have it structured a little different with $35 million a year for the next 4 years, and then it bumps up to $37.5 million for that final year in the player option. Let's see what he thinks. He's persistent, and his number just keeps going up. So we're going to have to structure this in a way where the base salary for the first 4 years is higher than that player option. That seems to be what he wants. It looks like he wants to really hit free agency again after 4 years. All right, we're still at a $35.5 million average value, but you can see we've got 36 for each of the next 4 years and then lower for the option year. And we also increased the bonus for an all-star selection up to $300,000. Hopefully this will get that number of his to stop just going higher and higher since it's structured a little more the way that he wants. But I think we're getting dangerously close to him cutting off negotiations with us. But he's willing to think about this one. So we just kind of had to, I don't even want to say front load it, but we wanted to make that, he wanted that player option to be lower so he gets more money up front the first 4 guaranteed years. And then I guess it's potentially a little easier for him to opt out after the 4th season. So we are going to go ahead and submit that offer to Bobby Witt Jr. You can see that really takes the amount of money that we have for extensions way down, but we still do potentially have enough to get involved with Mr. Bauer if we want to. That's the next big decision we've got to figure out. And I had been completely operating under the assumption this season that we were going to be done with Bauer after this year. He's a fragile pitcher. We have, by managing his workload and keeping him to 150, 160, 170 innings over the last 4 years, we've kept him pretty healthy with a 90 pitch count, but he's really been a 5-inning pitcher for us. Don't love giving big money to a fragile pitcher who's now in his 30s. But the only other options are starters are Anderson Paulino, who's also fragile and looking for pretty big money, 2 years older. And then Aaron Nola, who supposedly his demand is going to be more reasonable, but he's 37 years old and fragile, going to be 38 by June of next year. So there's just not great options out there. Last I looked, Bauer was looking for like 25, 26 million a year over 7 years. Yeah, 27.5 million over 7 years. We can't possibly give him that length deal, and I'm not going to give him that kind of money either. But I think I'm going to at least try to put an offer on the table for a shorter deal with him. And if we aren't able to get him signed before he hits free agency, we can always revisit things when he's on the open market. But kind of looking at the opportunity set that's out there, if we can get him for less money in fewer years, I think it might be the way to go. This is one that could really blow up on us. You know, he could end up wrecked with one more injury and just not giving us a lot of production. But I don't want to lock up him for the long term, and I certainly don't want to put a player opt-out in a very front-loaded contract, which he's looking for, so he can hit free agency again in a couple years if he pitches well. But if I can structure something with less money and less years, I'm going to at least throw an offer out there to Spencer Bauer. So Bauer was looking for 7 years, average of almost 27.5, 192.4 total, with an opt-out after the second year, and then player options towards the end of it if he did opt in. We're going to come back to him offering $25 million a year for 5 years, with the last year a team option. So $125 million over 5 years, keeping in the $1.3 million Cy Young bonus and the $180,000 All-Star bonus that he was seeking. I don't think he'll go for this, but I also don't think it's an insulting offer. Okay, we'll make the buyout a little higher. Interesting. He's come back to us for 6 years at $26 million, so he's come down $1.5 million in what he's looking for. It's still $1 million a year more than we were offering, and an extra year. And he really wants those player opt-outs after the second season, and then player options those final 2 years. So it's a lot of risk for us if he gets injured, and being a fragile pitcher, that's certainly possible. Got to think about this one. All right, we're going to try to meet him in the middle a little bit. We had offered 25. He's brought his offer down to 20. We had offered him $25 million a year for 5 years. He came back to us $26 million a year for 6 years with a lot more player options. We're going to offer him a total of $25.3 million a year. We're going to give him the 6 years he wants. We're going to give him the player opt-out he wanted after 2 years, but he had wanted player options for the 5th and 6th years of the contract. We're going to turn those into team options. So if he opts in, from our perspective, it's really a 4-year contract at $25.5 million a year. And then if we want to keep him on the other side of it, we've got the option those last 2 seasons. I think this is definitely a meet in the middle kind of offer. I don't know whether he'll go for it or not, but I think it's a reasonable solution on our end. I just don't want all the options in his hands, because by the time he is in his mid-30s, he could be just a total disaster if he has a few more injuries. He really wants those player options, and he increased the amount of money that he's looking for. So for the time being, I don't think I'm going to come back to him with another offer. Let's see what happens with Bobby Witt Jr. Let's see what happens with the players we've made those arbitration offers to. And let's see what happens with the trade offer that we've made. Obviously, if we open up some money by trading away Luis Jose, that may make us a little more willing to spend a little more money on Mr. Bauer. And Milwaukee has accepted that offer, so We are going to get Jose off the books for Ben Adams and Ricky Almanza. Again, we're not getting much in return, but we're getting $67 million over the next 5 years off of our books for a player who is somewhat surprisingly after we gave up so much for him 2 years ago, but not in our long-term plan. So we're going to go ahead and complete the trade. Luis Jose is gone. The fans are not happy that we lost him. Let's see the type of hit that only a 1-point hit to fan interest, but you can see that opened up a lot more money for us for extension. So still going to wait to see what happens with some of the arbitration eligible players and Bobby Witt Jr. before potentially re-engaging with Spencer Bauer. Salary arbitration hearings aren't for almost another 3 weeks, so we've got time to revisit those negotiations if we decide to. And the good news is that a lot of those guys have started signing the arbitration deals we offered them, and we've also been signing some of our minor leaguers to renewed minor league contracts. But the fans are excited. We brought Jacobs back, also got Tyler Bosma back, Ricky Vanasco, Junior Marin, Will Goebel, and Ricardo Cabrera. Will Goebel and Zach Jacobs were positive in terms of the fan reaction. Just 1 point each, but got our fan interest back to even above where it was before. So before we traded away Jose. So at this point, the only arbitration player is Easton Tumis, who last we checked in didn't even want to talk to us. Still not interested in a discussion, so we're going to make a $3.8 million a year offer to him. Actually, we'll pump it up a little bit of a notch. I'm sure he's going to want even more. He's probably going to submit around $4.5 million, so hopefully we can keep him a little bit lower than that. So now we're waiting to hear from Bobby Witt Jr., and then we can decide whether we want to potentially re-engage with Spencer Bauer. Could also see what RJ Davich is looking for. Still $7.5 million a year for 4 years, which is a lot. He's a excellent middle reliever, but that's a lot of money for a middle reliever. And the other thing that we could always think about is whether we want to try to get our young star Alex Vasquez locked up for the long term. Still looking at about $18 million a year for 10 years, which is not unreasonable. The issue is that we've got him under minimum salaries and salary arbitration through these 5 years, and then he's been pretty insistent about a player opt-out after 5 years, which kind of completely defeats the purpose for us if we can't guarantee ourselves that we're going to get some of those free agent years bought out. So see what happens with Bobby Witt Jr. as we get closer to getting into awards season, and we're still about 2.5 weeks away from arbitration. And things not going well. You may remember from our last episode that we made an offer to trainer Mel Maxey. Well, apparently he's got a bigger offer now. We thought he was by far the best trainer that was out there, and you can see he's got a nice profile, so we're pretty much going to have to meet whatever he's looking for. Yeah, he's looking for a lot more money now. We had offered him, I think, about $400,000 before, so we're going to cut it back a little bit from $700,000 to $730,000 and see if we can lock him up for 5 years. See what he has to say about that offer. The really bad news, and we had talked about this a few years ago, but we have the Guru storyline again, and it involves the man who will be the ace of our staff if we don't bring Spencer Bauer back in Caleb Lagerwell. So Caleb Lagerwell is flying to India to meet with the famous Guru. Last time we were able to navigate this without any major issues with our center fielder, but it is a unpredictable storyline that can result in some weird things. So we will see what happens with our ace when he comes back from meeting with the Guru. And good news, Mel Maxey did sign our offer to join us as our trainer, so that is good news. Gold Glove Awards for the AL are announced. Bobby Witt Jr., we've got that offer out there pending to him to re-up with us for another 5 years, hopefully. Just won another Gold Glove, so that is the fifth Gold Glove of his career, and he's also a 5-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year award winner, World Series champ, and he's been the AL Division Series MVP. And I think he was also the All-Star or the Wild Card MVP this last year, but it doesn't look like that's... oh, yeah, it is there. It's just kind of hidden behind his shoulder. So starting to build up a decent amount of hardware on his player card. But Bobby Witt Jr., the only All-Star for the Royals this past season. And we got one Gold Glove Award with Bobby Witt Jr., and we also have one Silver Slugger Award. Not surprisingly, it's our young DH, Alex Vasquez, who I would assume is going to be named Rookie of the Year shortly. Led the league in doubles, runs batted in, batting average, slugging percentage, OPS, and WRC plus in his rookie year at the age of 23. So not a shock to see Vasquez win his first Silver Slugger Award. I imagine we will be seeing him win Rookie of the Year tomorrow. So let's sim right ahead and see what happens there. Ricardo Cabrera is healthy. That is good news. AL hands out Rookie of the Year award. Yes, not surprising at all. Unanimous award winner for Alex Vasquez. Let's see if his price has already gone up. Now still in that mid-18s. Again, once we know what's going on with Bobby Witt Jr., then we're going to have to make a decision on Spencer Bauer. And we're getting kind of free agency filings on the 19th. Would like to know what's going on with Bobby Witt Jr. I'm kind of okay if Bauer heads to free agency. He seems really insistent on that player option early in the contract, which I just think is incredibly dangerous for us given the amount of years that he's looking for, his age, and his proclivity towards injuries at this point. So if we can't get him locked up before he hits the open market, I think that's fine. But I'd like to definitely get Bobby Witt Jr. locked up right now, especially with the extra money that we have on the books, having traded away Luis Jose. And another day, another award for the Royals. Byron Nichols won Manager of the Year. I think that's his second Manager of the Year award, or his third. Wow, he won it in 26, 27, and now 2030. So it has been 5 seasons since we named him Manager, 4 playoff appearances, a World Series victory, and 3 Manager of the Year awards for Byron Nichols. So that has worked out pretty well for both us as well as him. And good news, Bobby Witt Jr. has signed that contract. So we have got our best player locked up, $177.5 million over 5 years. I think it's probably an overpay for what he is. Really 4 years at $36 million a year before the player opt out before his age 34 season. But he will certainly be our third baseman or our shortstop next year. And I think it was pretty important for us to keep our franchise cornerstone with the amount of money we had available, and the fact that the 2 positions he plays best, shortstop and third base, were both positions where we were going to have significant holes if we had let him go. So happy to have Bobby Witt Jr. back for at least another 4 seasons, and we'll deal with what happens when he's got that next player option in 2034. Then right now we've got him locked up for another 4 years. So that is very good news as we get closer to free agency. And the fans are ecstatic that we brought him back. So that kicked up fan interest another 4 points to 90. So that's excellent. Feel a little better about having increased ticket prices, having him back. But in the little bit of bad news, Caleb Lagerwell is back from India. Ooh. This is the best reaction that I think we could have to the Guru storyline. He came back. He thinks it was a waste of time. He's not that spiritual. He should have gone fishing, bought his wife some Indian jewelry. Teammates and officials reacted with relief. Yeah, we are glad that he didn't decide to leave baseball, said an anonymous member of the Kansas City front office. So I think that's the best possible resolution of the Guru storyline. So seems like Caleb Lagerwell is not going to be potentially walking away from baseball for a life of spiritualization and prayer and inner peace. So I think that's good for the Royals. And it does, kind of reduce the pressure for us to just throw money at Spencer Bauer. Looking at where we are headed to arbitration, I guess we'll check in one last time with Easton Toomas, see if he's willing to talk to us, and he's still not. So we'll just keep that offer out to him. We've got the qualifying offer out to Spencer Bauer. Let's see what he's looking for extension-wise. 6 years, $26.4 million average. He's insistent on that player opt-out and those player options for those last couple years. I'm going to try to structure something a little different, but I don't want him having those player options in his mid-30s. Maybe we just make this like a 4-year deal with the player option for him after the second year. And then after his 4th season, we all kind of just have cleared the decks and decide whether anybody wants to move on. Yeah, we're going to try to engage with Bauer. We're offering him $26 million a year over 4 years. We're letting him opt out after 2 years if he's incredibly healthy and effective, and we're willing to be stuck with him for 2 more years if he's not. I don't feel great about it. I'm not sure whether he'll go for it or not, but let's see. No, he's looking for even more money. He really wants that opt-out after the second year and then some player options at the end of it. I think we're going to have to let him hit free agency. So I guess the question now is, knowing that he's going to be hitting free agency, do we try to make an offer to Davich or Vasquez? I don't think we're going to be able to offer Davich enough money. Now he's increased it from $7.5 million to $8 million a year. He has been an excellent reliever for us. 3-time All-Star as a middle reliever. And you look at his numbers over the course of his career, and they are pretty impressive. But we'll offer him $6 million a year for 4 years. He's looking for $8 million a year for 4 years. I don't think he's going to go for that, but I at least want to try to keep him. Actually, he's willing to think about it. So maybe we can bring Davich back, and it's actually conceivable that he could even be our closer next year. So we'll see what happens. You look at the way he's pitched for us at the major league level: 137 career ERA plus, 82 career FIP minus, 3.05 career ERA, but a 2.82 SIERA over the course of his career. He is almost 32 years old, but he's got a really nice profile for a reliever and has been really effective for us. And as I said, it's conceivable he could end up being our closer. So given that we are not making an offer to Bauer except for the qualifying offer, maybe we'll get Davich locked up, at least get one big arm back for our pitching staff before we head into free agency. And before we move on to see what happens with Davich, just check in on the big awards. Cy Young Award in the American League, Kumar Rocker. Spencer Bauer finished third in the voting, the only Kansas City Royal, or at least for the time being, a Kansas City Royal who received votes. You can see former Royal Zach Willeman, who we talked about, who we had traded to the Red Sox in that Luis Jose trade a couple years ago. Also got some votes for Cy Young Award in the American League. National League, Danny Perez, 9-10 record, but a 3.16 ERA and 241 strikeouts over 247 and 2/3 innings pitched. Cy Young Award at the age of 26 for the Pirates. AL MVP, Bobby Figueroa of the White Sox, monster year, 299 average, 37 homers, 117 driven in for the third baseman. Alex Vasquez, our Rookie of the Year, finished fifth in the voting. And Bobby Witt Jr., who we obviously recently re-upped, finished seventh in the voting. And then in the National League, Gerald Nin, 25-year-old with the Diamondbacks, MVP with a 313 batting average, 53 homers, 127 ribbies. Fernando Tatis Jr. finished second in the voting. He has had just an incredible career in this playthrough. 31 years old, and he already has 559 home runs, and you can see he has led the National League in home runs 8 out of the last 10 seasons. Just some monster years for him. He's led the league in OPS 6 times in the last 8 years, so didn't win the MVP award, but obviously having an incredible career. All right, so RJ Davich has assigned his extension, so at least gives us a good proven arm for the bullpen in the event we're not able to bring back Spencer Bauer. You can see we're heading in with close to $32 million to spend as we head closer to free agency, so we will have the money to bring Bauer back, I think, if we want, but then there's also an argument that see who else is available as a free agent and maybe spread the money around to a couple people. We could still use a shortstop or third baseman alongside Bobby Witt Jr., and we could still certainly use some help in the rotation. If Aaron Nola is really a $13 million pitcher, that may be the more economical way for us to go. There are also 3 big-time closers, all of whom have actually been Kansas City Royals in the past. Our longtime closer, Austin Roberts, longtime reliever, Reed Goleman, who we somewhat painfully traded away to the Mariners to get Julio Rodriguez as a rental in 2027, but since that's the year we won the World Series and Julio Rodriguez was our World Series MVP, I think that trade kind of worked out for both things. And then our current closer, who we picked up at the trade deadline, Luke Murphy, is going to be out there. So, particularly if one of these 3 guys kind of stays on the market for a little longer and the price comes down, maybe instead of bringing Spencer Bauer back, we bring back one of these guys, try to, maybe bring on an Aaron Nola, and then we, kind of look to, I don't want to say hit the bargain bin, but, not someone as expensive as Tim Anderson, but is there a shortstop or third baseman we can find? Do we bring back Nikki Lopez even? There's definitely some options out there, and it doesn't preclude us from trying to make a run at Bauer once we do get to free agency. So not surprisingly, Spencer Bauer declined our qualifying offer, so he's a free agent. The $3.85 million that we offered to Tumis won in arbitration. He was looking for $4.75 million, so even though he wouldn't talk to us, we were able to kind of get him at the number that we thought made sense. So again, we're gonna be headed into free agency with over $30 million. So I don't think we're in a bad position, given that we've already got both Bobby Witt Jr. and R.J. Davich locked up, and we've still got a fair amount of money to spend when free agency does begin. And we've made it to free agency. International free agents, take a quick look whether there is anyone interesting out there. Right now, it looks like there is a lot of nothing in terms of at least what our scout thinks of these players. I guess Jorge Vasquez looks like a major leaguer, but certainly not someone we'll chase after. Ramon Rodarte. He's young, I'll give him that, but again, looks like he could be a average-ish major league corner outfield, so nothing all that exciting there. And then the big free agents, Aaron Nola, who we've talked about potentially chasing after. Let's see what he's looking for. He is looking for that 1-year deal at $13 million, so that is something that we should think about. Yainer Fernandez, the catcher, just not very good defensively. Looking for $37 million a year. No interest there. Eloy Jimenez, left fielder with some good power, just not a position of need for us. Also looking for $25 million a year. Tim Anderson, we could conceivably look to bring him back at short, but I think he's going to be too expensive. Yeah, he's come down a little bit, but still $18.7 million a year for 3 years. He's going to be 38 next June. May have to move on from him. Anderson Paulino, another good starter. I have a feeling his dollar figure is going to be rough. $23.5 million. He's somebody to definitely think about. He's been an above-average pitcher over the course of his career with a 108 ERA plus and an 85 FIP minus. 2-time All-Star, also won a Cy Young Award. So Paulino, I would say, is in the mix. Nola, we would consider. Trevor Story, 38 years old, second base, can also play short. $22 million a year, pass. Yohan Moncada could play third for us if we moved Bobby Witt Jr. to short, but $20+ million a year at the age of 35, probably not the right guy for the Royals. Zach Jackson, a reliever, $18 million a year, pass. Christian Hernandez, the young third baseman from the Red Sox. I think if we had him, we would play Bobby Witt Jr. at short. Looks like he's looking for $22.1 million a year. Yeah, for 9 years. That's going to be pretty pricey for us. And then our buddy Spencer Bauer, looking for even more than when he was talking to us, $35.4 million a year. And he's looking for 8 years with that opt-out after the second season, making close to $40 million a year these next 2 years. So Spencer Bauer is definitely not in the mix. Aaron Nola could be. Anderson Paulino could be. We'll just take a look at a couple other things before we finish up the episode, as far as who's available. Nikki Lopez, is he really looking for $6.5 million? How long is Lopez looking for? 3 years. Definitely don't know that I want to be giving him 3 years, but we could bring him back. He's been gone for a season. Obviously, Tim Anderson did a pretty good job replacing him last year. Not much of a hitter at this point in his career, but still a solid glove. So we could pair him with Bobby Witt Jr. again, potentially. So wonder what Devers is looking for. 12.125, but how many years? 4 years. He was not very productive after we picked him up. Javi Baez at short, looking for $12.2 million. Really nice glove. Not much of a hitter at this point. I think I'd prefer Nikki Lopez for about half the price. And then the closers, Golemon, Murphy, and Roberts all looking for in that $15 to $16 million neighborhood. So if the price on any of them comes down, maybe something to think about with one of the closers. Maybe we think about Nola or Paulino as far as starting pitchers. And then maybe we think a little bit about Nikki Lopez at shortstop. So we definitely have some options in our next episode as free agency begins. And we've got over $40 million for free agents right now. So we've got money to do some things. We probably want to increase our scouting and development budgets a bit. We're okay with our international amateur budget and our draft budget at this point, but we do have the money. We're not going to bring back Spencer Bauer, but if we wanted to chase after Paulino or Nola, we could certainly do one of those guys. And as I mentioned, there's potential for Nikki Lopez. There's potential for a closer, and who knows what else could kind of emerge over the next few weeks. But we will focus on those decisions in free agency in our next episode. If people have any thoughts, would love to hear them in comments down below. Until our next episode, thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.